All right, we're going to start the Fenbushi Research House presentation day today. Thank you all for being here on behalf of Fenbushi. We're very happy that you guys would join us, participate throughout the week, and then obviously today we have a lot of interesting presentations lined up, and we ask that this just be kind of fun and chill, and most of all, inquisitive, knowledgeable. If you have a question, ask. If you're presenting, don't be afraid to try to interact. Let's all try to learn and grow and see what each other are doing. It will be very good. And to start us off, we have Johan. Please welcome Johan.
Okay, this feels like deja vu again because the last time I presented was after lunch, and a wise man once told me that the hardest presentation is always the one presenting after everyone's eaten. And then because everyone's full, and all the blood is going to your stomach. So I hope I can wake you guys up from a rather interesting topic I'll be talking about today, which is about quantum. So I'm pretty sure that everyone here has heard about quantum, right? But I think most of you guys only know about quantum computing, but that's only I would say 1% of what quantum actually is. So let's get started. So before I actually go in detail on what I'm going to be talking about, I need to give you guys a primer on what quantum actually is. So there's 3 core principles. The first one is qubits can be either 0 or 1, which means that in classical computation it's either 0 or it's 1, right? It's either one state or another. It cannot be both at the same time. But when it comes to quantum physics, the qubit is both 0 and 1 at the same time. And the second most important thing is that how qubits work is that most of its states are not finalized yet. But the thing is that it can be influenced by another that's entangling to it, which means that the state of a qubit is not finalized until there's a coherent link between it and both states can be influenced to be the same thing. And finally, it's superposition, which is how it works. So let's say I'm a 1 and the other qubit that linked to me is a 0. The 0 can influence the 1 to become a 0. Likewise, the 1 can become a 1. And so this is the basis of how the qubits actually work and how quantum computing actually becomes far greater than what a GPU or CPU can ever compute. And so a couple of core applications I can talk about quantum in this setting without going too much into dangerous territories is quantum computing, which is the one that most of you guys probably know. The second is quantum sensors, which is mainly used in mining and medical usage. So how it's going to be used in mining is that, think of it as it's like a sensor which is equipped with a qubit. And for as long as the qubit inside the sensor is linked to the ground-based sensor, you drop it down, it can actually form a link. And from the top link to the bottom link, it's able to spread far and wide and see what's underneath. So it's better than most robotics that's being used nowadays. And so the third one is the most important, which is quantum communication, which is 95% of what quantum is actually used for. Shocking. And finally, it's post-quantum cryptography, which is, I would say it's a recent creation by NIST. It's a way in which classical computers can keep up with the way that quantum computers are theoretically supposed to reach a state in which you can destroy, or more like cryptographically hijack most systems. So these are the 4 main things. I will not talk about teleportation today. Okay, any questions so far? I'll just talk about the compute part. So how the quantum computer works is that you put 2 qubits together. So it's one is, it can be 0 and 1, and the other is 0 and 1. So with 2 qubits, it's 2 to the power of 4 because you're adding just 2 qubits. But imagine if you add more, so that 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16. So imagine that 4 qubits can really hit 2 to the power of 16 of computations. And so most people think that if you need to hit 1 million or 10 million qubits to render most classical computers useless. But the thing is that it's as simple as maybe just 2 qubits, because if you think about it, most of the cybersecurity methods or social engineering methods don't really require on qubits. So you have to think about the sense in which that most of the cybersecurity methods can be applied to a quantum computer that's trained towards being cryptographically ready to break most of the private keys that's available. So the big difference is that the qubits and the GPU is that GPUs are limited based on physical reality, whereas qubits work in a way in which it's very hard to explain because quantum physics is one field in which there are many questions to it. Any questions so far? Okay. Next one is quantum sensors. Like I mentioned, the 2 main use cases are in medical and in natural resources. So natural resources is mainly for mining, and for medical is to unravel different patterns in people's bodies. So this goes very deep into what World Health Organization is going into, as well as a lot of apparatus in the nanotech space. So I'll actually go into the next topic, which is about quantum communication, which is a topic which I've been into for quite a while. And so how quantum communications work is that it's very different from the next topic, which is post-quantum cryptography. Is that quantum key distribution is based on the principles of how qubits interact with each other, which means that when the qubit were to interact with a qubit, it's going to form a scheme, which is very similar to your digital signature algorithms that most people are using today. So the two most popular schemes that are being used in quantum cryptography is BB88 and E91. So the majority of all quantum cryptography schemes nowadays are all based upon E91, which is how most satellites are used from 1996 all the way to now, which is moving forward. And so when it comes to quantum key distribution, it's actually the most proven way to be quantum secure because inherently it uses quantum. So a big thing that a lot of people have a misunderstanding is that quantum secure and being quantum is actually the same thing. But to be quantum secure is a very theoretical thing because you can't claim to be quantum secure unless you're using a quantum computer to test against your system. And I would say that a majority of the post-quantum systems are not quantum secure because they're only theoretical. Whereas in the quantum space, most of the quantum stuff already quantum by design. And so the reason why it's secure is because there's something called the observer problem, which is that way. It's the whole reason how quantum works is that it works for as long as there is no flow. Okay, so it works in a way in which the moment there's an observer, the link breaks. And because the states are always in flux, it will always find a new way to communicate with each other. So it's always changing. So that's why it's when everything is purely quantum, there is no need to worry about quantum security until the point in which the observer problem is solved, which is to this day, nobody has solved it. And it's actually going to take a very long time to solve it. And so in Singapore, we are actually purely quantum as of 2017. So it's a very long study in which we are conducting. It's actually called the National Quantum Safe Network. It's something which is reminiscent in China because China is also doing something very similar to this, or I would say they are really far ahead of us. So how this National Quantum Safe Network works is that a lot of the satellites right now are going to be migrated from existing ones that's used by like SC Engineering, Raytheon and all that. You'll be shifting more towards one which uses quantum repeaters and quantum satellites to do key distribution. So how it works is that the satellite has, do I have a whiteboard? But never mind, it's fine. Yeah, so you have to understand that when it comes to entanglement, right, once the two qubits are entangled to each other, it will forever retain the link. But to ensure that fault tolerance is achieved, just make it very simple, okay? Can you see? Give me a thumbs up. Yeah. Yeah, sure. You put it in the middle. Yeah? Yeah, just very chill. Just ask me anything. Yeah. Because I think the questions will actually make me be able to explain more because there's some things I might not remember right now. Yeah, so think of it as a satellite A, satellite B, right? You all know how satellites work, right? They orbit out of space. Okay, so the satellite will orbit lah. Sorry, I spoke Singlish. So it will be B. After, okay, so last time I used to work on Gregorian calendar and Julian calendar. So there's an algorithm that I created that it can count the number of time that's passed in space. Because most calendars is 365. Then you set a year that starts from 0. So 365 plus year, this counts as one Julian or whatever, Gregorian. So it's 365. So you have to always add 365, 365. There's an algorithm for that. And then you calculate the distance where the satellite is going to be. And then in the middle, the reason how the telecommunications work, the QKD works, is that instead of predicting how it orbits, you just place a bunch of repeaters everywhere. Because the entanglement is really there. So you always find a way to connect to each other depending on where it's going to be. So this is the theoretical, or more like the applied settings that we're using for the next, what year is it now? 2025. For the next 3 years, from 2024 until 2027. Then there will be the India space program. You should look out for that. So this is how it's going to be. So the thing is that in space, it works very differently. The time function is very different. And then whereas on the Earth base, it's going to be like your standard satellite systems. So, as you can see, there's going to be ground stations, and majority is that Okay, there's a very funny joke is that if you want to break quantum, you just cut the fiber optic cable. Then, yeah, actually that's how it works. So if you see like a cable, you just can cut it. Like, I won't tell you where. So how it works is that the satellites in space will communicate with each other, and then the ground-based system will receive it. But so if you see this thing running around like a, okay, you get what I mean. Yeah, so this is how the architecture is going to be. So before I get into post-quantum cryptography, you have to understand that quantum cryptography is all based on hardware, which is the quantum device itself. And most of it is physical. That means that there's no way that you're going to go in and do a side channel attack or hack their smart contract because it doesn't exist. It's all very closed. Whereas on post-quantum cryptography, which I'll talk later, it's all software-based. And so there's actually a lot of research and work that's being done. I'm pretty sure you guys know what is stuckware, right? Yeah, I think everyone here knows what stuckware. Algorand, right? You guys know Algorand? Yeah, so they are mainly software-based. And most of them are following standardization. And so the issue with standardization is that you just put it out there, everybody will find out a way to hack you. So that's why I don't really trust open source things. Yeah, so let's get into post-quantum cryptography. So in the case where quantum cryptography is being used for telecommunications use cases, post-quantum cryptography is like mainly being used in financial settings. Financial settings where I mean is that the majority of crypto companies or companies in the digital asset space are actually moving towards this standard. However, there's many issues they have to solve because first thing is that they are moving towards stable coins, and next they also have to worry about when quantum computers become a reality. And so what post-quantum cryptography is that is based on the traditional cryptography that many people use, like RSA. Like I think most of you know what's RSA. And then there's Bitcoin is based on ECC, right? The elliptic curve cryptography. So post-quantum cryptography is nothing new under the sun. It's just changing the way the signatures are formed. Instead of the usual way, they're now using lattices and hashes. So I just summarized it in 2 lines. So it's so the post-quantum cryptography thing became a area of study from 2017. That was where the NIST launched a standardization contest for esteemed academicians and all the researchers to publish what they think will be adopted into the future. So actually there's I think more than 500 signature schemes that were submitted. And out of these 500, I think 3 were selected to be immediately adopted. So the 2 that was adopted is lattices based, which is by IBM, which is the Kyber and the Dilithium, which is mainly used across quite a few new companies who are exploring a quantum blockchain, quantum secure blockchain. And the final one is Sphinx Plus by Google. So this is mainly used for data storages. As you know, like Google is very big on their machine learning and all that. So this is the standard they have actually introduced and adopted. But the thing is that when it comes to using a quantum safe infrastructure, right, there is also a lot of issues that comes with it. Because back in 2017, along the same time when the standardization contest started, the BIS, the Bank of International Settlement, which is responsible for SWIFT, they also conducted a parallel study together with those that were going to be selected for standardization. It's actually proven that when they adopted these brand new signature schemes, let me just talk this problem. It's not very important. So this part you guys might listen up, especially for those who wants to adopt some quantum security into your infrastructure, is that no doubt you can implement post-quantum cryptography into it. You can upgrade your existing signatures. But there are a lot of things that you have to be worried about is that the current infrastructure, let's say your Google Chrome browser, and a lot of this modern infrastructure is being used like your AWS, your Cloudflare, your CrowdStrike, they are not able to support PQC yet because the signature size are very big. And so that's why there's going to be a lot of issues from now until 2035 where a lot of companies are testing out to see whether they can change the way they upgrade their infrastructure. So let's just move back a bit. Okay, let's go to here. So like I mentioned, stuckware is one of the ways in which post-quantum cryptography was used. But unfortunately, zkStuck was not selected as one of the winners of the competition. Don't ask me why. But also there's another form of zero-knowledge proofs that was used for post-quantum cryptography, which is Picnic by Microsoft. So fun fact was that Microsoft launched it in 2017 and stuckware launched it in 2018. So there's a debate who created zkStuck first. I don't know, you guys will be the judge. And so there's Falcon. Falcon is the proven, theoretically secure layer 1. So if you guys want to explore a clunky blockchain is quantum secure but cannot finalize transactions, you can try it out. And so this is in the area of like Web3, there's already solutions that are introduced. But there's not much adoption yet because when it comes to national security and finance or like DeFi is mainly about finality, right? How fast your transactions can go through and finalize. Whereas when it comes to like national security, it's not about how fast it is, it's whether how secure it is. So when you think about it, picnic, I try to create a difference, right? ZK Stack is one-to-many, whereas your picnic is one-to-one. It's the use case is a bit different. Okay, and then I already covered the first few problem, which is the changing of the infrastructure. So any questions so far? Because I want to take a water break.
Maybe that's so I'm an expert, like to understand a little bit more. So you mentioned that qubits are basically 0 or 1 or somewhere in between 0 and 1.
No, it's both at the same time, but it has not finalized.
Then it converge, right?
When it observes and it's not okay, so how it works is that it's 0 and 1 at the same time, but the moment you observe, it changes.
It changes to 0 1.
Yes, based on the thing that's entangled to it, so it automatically switch.
Okay.
Yes.
So you mentioned just now that you say that really a 2 because it's 0 and 1 is 2 to the power of 2, whether you add 1 is 2 to the power of 3. But isn't that
2 to the power of 4?
Yeah, but isn't that the same as just normal like bytes 0 and 1? Like when you add more and more, you get more data. It's like
correct. So the thing is that the power, right, it creates more possibilities. So instead of like 2 to the number of bits that you add with the classical, right, when you add the qubit, right, it actually exponents a lot.
So it's 2 to the power of 2 to the power of 2.
Yes, so it's 4, then you double. So you double and double and double.
Basically, like the previous method of storing data, you always have 2 to the power of 2 already. But
correct.
Here you have 2 to the power of 2 to the power of 2.
Correct. So it always exponents. It increases a lot.
And then the exponent is based on predicting what the probability of 0 or 1 is.
Yes, because 2 qubits is 0 and 1, right? And then you add, no, 2 qubits is 0 and 1, 0 and 1. So the more you add another possibility. So it's like what will be 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1. So the scheme always changes.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's very complicated to explain without like a proper diagram. Yeah.
And then you say that when there's 2 qubits only, you can create a scheme. So how does this scheme happen when
okay.
2 qubits together?
So you will select like 0, 1, right? So you send 0, 1 over. And then you accept it as 0 and 1. And then you send 1, 1 over. So it's basically 2 qubits, right, which will collaborate and pick the number of tries, right, to form that shared key. And so when there's an observer in place that wants to intercept, and the moment it sends over like the wrong sequence, right, then they know that it is not secure already.
Okay, so let get this straight. So normally, let's say you have a classic computer, you need 0 and 1 and CS1, and then you only have 4 possibilities, right? 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0. Correct. But then when you have 2, it can send multiple messages between correct and create the arbitrary like key, which is a scheme.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct. So the thing is that if there's more qubits in place, right, it will always form a very large key where the tries is almost impossible to eavesdrop. So when the observer is able to see, he might be able to intersect and send, but things like he might not get every single thing right because the number of qubits is going to be a lot.
Okay, the way does the entanglement come in? Because right now you're talking about 2 that are independent.
Yes.
That's why they can communicate like this. But where does the entanglement come in?
The entanglement come in during the first one. The first 2 qubits that link to each other.
But if let's say it's 2 that are creating this scheme, both are not linked. Because if they're linked, they won't be able to communicate.
Correct. No, it's so how the quantum qubit works is that it always starts with 2. It will always be a link between 2 first.
So not linked.
Not linked, yes. So it's always going to be.
It's not be linked with something else.
No, the first one will always be linked to something else because it always finds a first link.
Okay, so
and
the
then
first one is linked to something else that it communicates with the second one.
Yes, correct. And then the next one will always have a link to the next one. And the previous one also has a link to the next one because it's parallel realities.
The 2 must not be linked.
When you create a scheme, it's usually the communication between the 2 qubits, and then you will find another state in which it will link to the previous one. So it's a phenomena where it's always going to find a link.
But the 2 are not linked.
Not linked, correct. So it's a topic in which, like, when it comes to qubits, right, you don't know which state are always linked to each other, but it's always linked. I hope everyone understands that part.
So like in the quantum communication,
yes.
So if your qubit and my qubit are entangled,
yes,
and I change it, and so you can get that.
Yes.
Can we reuse them? Like is that this tear down just gonna be like useless, or we can actually later on I can change it again and we can.
It will flip to the other qubit that's already making a link with another qubit, with your qubit, because it holds different states. And because that qubit is linked to another qubit, it will flip as well. You get it? Because every qubit is linked. So the moment one is broken, that thing will superposition its state to this one, and the other will superposition and form another link.
I get that, but
Yeah.
it's like it means that so we can do this communication once.
Yes.
But then if I want to communicate again, can I still use the one, or these one already used it, so they need to be taught?
It will flip the state. That means it's already linked, but its other state is linked to another. They will already found a link to the next one. So you get it? Because the qubit is always changing states. So each state is really linked to something. And the moment that one is hijacked, it will just superposition one state to the next, and the other will superposition to the next. It will form a link.
So links are always changing.
Oh, links are always changing, but each one has already formed a link with each other. So it's like a cluster.
But after they change the state, then the links will be formed.
Something like that. But just think of it is that every qubit will already have a state as linked, and your superposition itself. So think of it as like the 0 and 1 is always going to be in flux. But each state is already fixed to one that's fixed to another. So it will superposition itself over, and then you form a link.
So my understanding is you can reuse them.
You can reuse, but it's not going to be the same one as the one that's really been observed. Because the qubits are always linked to another. So the states are always like the 0 and 1, that 1 is linked to that 1, and that 1, 0 is linked to another 0, and then 0's 1 is linked to another 1. And then if you were to hijack, it will superposition over and over and over. So it's like a ring.
But it never actually resolves to 0 or 1, right? It's always in flux.
It's always in flux. So it's a kind of issue where it's always changing. Yeah.
Okay, I may follow up on that later. But we can also, like you talk about this quantum sensing. You said it's useful for mining and healthcare stuff. But people say quantum computing is good for solving like combinatory problems. How is that different from the sensing, like absolutely about?
Okay, so quantum computing, right, is based on historical data that already exists. It's more of calculating probabilities. Whereas for mining is discovering, it's like exploration. So think of it as it's a gold mining company standpoint. One is based on discovery, the other is based on exploration. Or maybe I break it up even more. So the quantum sensing is for discovery and exploration. The quantum computer is more of producing the goal. You get what I mean? One is finding possibility, the other is procuring, like finding insights. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Okay.
So if post-quantum is basically just an algorithm. The goal of post-quantum is to find an algorithm that classical computers can still verify.
Yes.
But it's still so complicated. It takes up so much computation that even a quantum computer with the exponentially increasing computation won't be able to solve it.
Yes. So it's based on theoretical quantum security. Because so it can only be debunked if a quantum computer can break it.
Okay, so for example, like what you're saying is the elliptic curve. Theoretically, if you have enough computing power, you can work backwards and find out what the original currents are, right?
Yes, it's like breaking a private key.
So that's why the private keys for elliptic blockchains are not safe. Elliptic curve-based blockchains are not safe. But if let's say you use a new one, like lattice, you can still verify using classical computer. But even a quantum computer will be rigged.
That is the theoretical assumption. Correct. So that's why I've been saying that post-quantum cryptography is only theoretically secure. Pure quantum security is using quantum. Yeah. All right, let's go to the... Yeah, so let's talk about in the Web3 space, right? In blockchains. So I think there's a lot of exploration that's being done towards quantum securing the blockchain itself, which I believe is a red herring, because a lot of the problems that blockchain faces are the applications that are linked to it. Because a lot of these applications are still very susceptible to like social attacks and all your side channel attacks and all this. And also the big thing is that most of the smart contracts are exposed and the whole world can see how to make it vulnerable. So actually, one of the things that it comes to decentralized system is that not only do you have to quantum secure the blockchain itself, you also have to think about how every single smart contract, how every single DApp, how every single wallet, how every single private key has to migrate away from existing cryptography towards one that uses post-quantum cryptography, if that is the standard that everybody wants to move towards. So it's not just fixing one blockchain, because you have to fix everything else. Okay, so this part is Okay, so one of the solutions that my team has been introduced, or one of many, is that instead of using just the post-quantum cryptography, mainly for the financial use case, is that we are actually using a CPU. There's a CPU use case, a GPU use case, and there's also using a quantum computer. So we're actually very inspired by the results from the BIS study, which we were involved back in 2021 to 2023, was where we figured out that, or more like we found out that a lot of the results were that there were data losses. So for example, I will send you $1 on the SWIFT network. You guys know what SWIFT, right? Interbank transfer. So I send you $1 from a DBS bank in Singapore. Then I send you to your Barclays account. Then the message say you receive your $1, but then you open it and no $1. So it's like the encryption and the decryption works, but you do not receive anything. So that was one of the issues that was being faced, is that they were not only were they trading away performance for higher security, it doesn't work at all. So that was one of the results that came out. And so there was a lot of research that was being conducted using like classical ones, and then we moved towards preloading them with like GPUs and using a quantum computer. And so the quantum part is actually based on Penny Lane, which is from Xanadu Quantum, which is one of the Canadian-based state-owned companies. They actually, fun fact, they allow anyone to use quantum algorithms for free. So that means that if you guys are paying a lot for your GPUs, you can just go over to Penny Lane and you can try out up to 9 qubits. Yeah, so it's something which you guys can try out for your quantum optimization algorithms. But 9 qubits isn't a lot to do really complex things. I would say it's just good enough for vibe coding. Yeah. Okay, so how it works is, I'm pretty sure I just explained it, but the main part is that for using a quantum computer, it does not use the NTT, the number theoretic transform. It uses quantum Fourier transformation, which is that it applies Hadamard gates to all your computation and makes it very quick. So there's a paid version, which is on AWS. Oh, okay, so I need to hurry up. Okay, so the paid version is $7,000 an hour on Amazon. You have to book it for 6 months. So I highly doubt that if your business is making more than $1 billion, you need a quantum computer. But let's just say you're Swift at unlimited budget, then probably you need it. Okay, so let's skip this. So let me share some things in which post-quantum cryptography can be used in this setting. Is that the first one is cross-border payment rails, because I would believe that when stablecoins get adopted, it will definitely be the standard that's moving forward into the future. So a lot of the infrastructure for payments is likely going to be either quantum or post-quantum secure. So this is one area to look at. The cross-chain messaging is more or less faded because MAS, which is the central bank in Singapore, actually conducted a study with Layer 0, Chainlink, and the rest to see how it's done. But it's not in a post-quantum way. Because you think about it, for cross-chain messaging, right, every single country is going to be using their own blockchain standard. So the intermediary is like your immigration control has to be secure. So that is one area. And finally, this is an area which I've been having a discussion with a few people, is that you can't change the stablecoin, but maybe you create a derivative on top of the stablecoin that's going to be stored. So you use the quantum secure minted, okay, I'm not a DeFi guy. You just use that thing to just do your transfers. I think you get what I mean. So yeah, basically that. This is something they were talking to me about. Then I was like, oh sure, maybe it might work. And business continuity is the big thing as to why people want to use quantum security, because when it comes to regulations, right, you can't run a business if your bank goes down for six hours. Because in Singapore, if it goes down for a minute, the CEO has to appear and say, I'm sorry. Okay, so more use cases is DIDs, which is a very big topic. And a lot of the quantum things only can work when there's 5G involved. I can't go into detail. Later you can ask me. This part, if you guys want to find out more, you can take a picture of this. I can share you guys later. And if you want access to a quantum random number generator, you just call me. I can give you API access, but only 15 a day. Yeah. Yeah, and that's all for today. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, okay, thank you.
So hello everyone, today I'm going to talk to you about the machine economy. How X402 and ERC8004 will trust in agent-to-agent commerce. So the problem with agent-to-agent right now, the main one is collaboration. Like when one agent reaches out to another agent, how the agent A can trust the agent B. So that's the core problem. that those two standards combined together is going to solve it. So before diving into let's take a look into today's agenda. So I will divide the presentation in 6 parts. The first part is understanding how the current world works. And then I will introduce to the ERC 8004, the X402, and then I will dive into the fault validation model that depends on the value of the transaction. And then we see a real life example, how this works and how it will scale in the future. So let's get started with understanding the current world. Why we need this standard? So how it works per agent is we have an intermediary, a trusted intermediary that acts as a guarantee. So we have, for example, we have banks, so we have Stripe, PayPal that enable trusted transactions. But when we go into AI agents, who we can trust? So I individuated like a 4 problem that we're going to tackle in the next few slides. The first one is the identity crisis. Like if our agent, can we trust the agent? How can we trust the agent? There's no reputation. And the second one is the payment problem. How agent is going to pay another agent? The third problem is the verification problem. When we assign a task from one agent to another agent, how the second agent, how we can verify that the job is done correctly. And the last one is the scale. We try to achieve like a agent to agent or in like a full automated mode, because if there's human intervention, there's no like why we need agent to agent, right? So the point is we want to automate those interactions. So here's where those 2 standards come in that address the identity, payment, verification, and scale issue. So let's dive into ERC 8004, which is the standard for trustless agent. So we need it because it's because we need verifiable identity. And here we have 3 components. The first one is, with this standard, we define like a registry where we register each agent as an NFT. So in each NFT, it contains the agent information like the unique ID, the communication endpoint, the capabilities. So it's like a driving license for AI agents. And then we have the reputation registry, which is like a score that is given to an agent by its performance. So when an agent is more used with more successful history, then this agent is more trustable. And the validation registry. So with the validation registry, we prove that it works. The agent does what it says it does. And for the validation registry, there are several validations that we'll tackle later. And then we can move forward for X402. So this standard is for trusted payment. For example, here we have like agent A that interacts with agent B. If agent A is paid beforehand, how do we know that the agent B is not going to deliver what it's promised? So with this standard, we can solve this issue. And how it will work is we can go through this workflow where agent A do a payment, agent B to agent A do a payment request, and then we create this escrow, and then agent B do the work, and at the end we validate, and everyone's happy. So for the complete transaction flow, it will look like this. So before this standard, agent A will need to work with agent B. It will be like who's agent B? Who we should interact to get the job done? Can agent A trust agent B? Is agent B going to complete the task? And this is solved with 2 standards by first identifying the agent B. So this registry that we talked before, we find the most reputable agent that can do the task that agent A wants. Then they do this agreement where they analyze the, for example, agent B analyze the data, agent A pay the amount, and then they do the work. After that, we do a validation. This validation could be ticket proof, could be a third-party validator, could be just manually by agent A to get the response and say, okay, this is good. And after that, it's do the payment release. And as we can see after the transaction, agent B will gain more reputation and get the payment, and agent A will receive the work done. Get the work done. So a quick comparison how it's currently working and how it will work with in the agent economy. Currently, the speed we know that is slow. For example, if we ask our freelance to do a work for us, we have to emit the invoice, and then we also have the scalability issue because our human can't scale as fast large like AI agents. And then we move to part 4, which is not every transaction needs the same level of verification. It's very different, like if the amount involved is only $1 or the amount involved is 10,000. So depending on the amount that we are transacting with the AI agent, it would require like a different approach for validating. So let's start with the lowest value transaction one. So this one is like for example, if we would only want to pay $10 for market data, we don't need like a screw or something very complicated. We just can ask agent A to ask agent B and then receive the data, and that's it. Because we trust on the reputation system. Agent B wouldn't like scam agent A because for that small amount it doesn't worth it. So we just assume that through the reputation, it's enough to trust that the work gets done correctly. Then we can trust a third party, another agent that stake amount and do the validation. So agent A assign the task to agent B, and after the job is done, agent C will validate that the work is done correctly and will earn a fee from it. And he's incentivized to validate correctly that B has done a job correctly, because agency staked amount, if he doesn't do it correctly, may lose that stake. And then we have zero knowledge proof. And this one is based on method that leverage mathematical certainty to replace human judgment. And last not least is TEE attestation. We can run it in Howard-based cryptography proof that code execute correctly and confidentially. So this is a summary of all the 4 validation levels. And what's next is, let's put everything together. Let's see a real-world example. We can start with a scenario where we have a multi-agent financial analysis deal. And the setup is this one. We have Alice Corp that needs analysis. So Alice has his own agent A, and we have agent B that is the research firm, agent C the market data provider, and agent D the validator network. So this is how the flow looks like. We have the discovery phase, where agent A find in the registry the best agent to do the task. So in this case, it's agent B. Agent B, which is a research agent, will require data. So agent B would reach out to agent C to get the data. And then we have the validation agent that verify that all this process is done correctly, and for agent A to receive what agent A wanted. So at the end, we reach the settlement, and agent B earn the arbitrage from paying the agency 5,000, and it earn the remaining amount. Then we can go to the part 6, which is how it will scale in the future. Currently, we have already a lot of agents on the market, and but because it's really recent, there's a lot of agents that they don't have a huge historical data that we can say they are very reputable. So the reputable agents are still, I think, a small amount. And I think that it is in the future will be increasing, and that allow us to create very complex and powerful workflow. So as more agents do more tasks, they become more reliable. In the future, there will be more workflow that combine like a Lego together to resolve more complex tasks. And as more and more workflow come out, we can combine and resolve way harder problems. And this is how we enter in the machine economy, where I think there could be 4 stages. Currently, I think we are in the stage 1, where we have special agents that can collaborate and complete a specific task. And moving forward, they may cross industry, go with industry integration, and after that, it can impact globally. And at last stage, those autonomous agents can work together inside an economic zone. That's all. I think now we can go to the question and answers. Yeah.
I have always wondered how secure is so you don't give access to the agent.
How secure is to get access into the?
Yeah, you could give access to the agent for for some transactions, or for the recurring ones which needs one-off sign-off request which gives the agent to do multiple transactions on our behalf. Because let's suppose it might behave the way which we don't want. It might incur more gas costs sometimes. So how this
I think what my understanding is the agent may hallucinate, give a wrong answer, and do something that is not supposed to do. So you have the risk that you are going to lose your money. Is that the question?
Yes, and so let's suppose if there is a recurring payments, for example, called every API calls the pay using H402. How do we get the access? Is it like just pure giving out our private key to the agent, or is it something like giving an access to something like EIP 77002, where we delegate access our wallet's access to some another wallet, which might be an agent's wallet?
I think right now, the way that it's not so secure is you just save it like a server where you would save the private key in the environment variable, but more like a decentralized solution out there, like a key, you just deploy it, and it's like encrypt your private key, and it work inside this kind of sandbox, and it will interact with other agents without revealing your private key.
Can we say that is it trusting a centralized actor to give access of the asset?
If you use TE and deploy on the centralized network, you're not trusting centralized entities because it's encrypted and it's in the centralized network.
Okay.
And the part about how we can trust the AI agent output, we know that AI sometimes hallucinate, and it's not deterministic. So they don't give always the same response, and that is something that Eigen AI are solving. They have an AI agent model that are deterministic, so it will always give the same output with the same input. Any else?
What do you think about what I've seen is it's going to do only EIP 3009 tokens are supported right now with the signing, with the transfer, with authorization. So have you, had a thoughts or for the Exponent standard to support like other tokens, other type of like normal ERT, could you keep this as well? Because as of now, I know that only USDC, for example, is supported or tokens with permit. Otherwise, because of the Google transaction, otherwise the UX, to just as a UX, there are two transactions instead of one.
So yeah, currently it's support USDC because this is how the standard has defined. If you go to the open source, the X402, we can see that they have those token like a whitelisted kind of. So I think because it's a standard, it can support any token as far as it's like integrated into because right now when we use X402, we are actually using the library, right? So if any other token are added to the library, it will be also supported.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah.
That of course the token have to support also.
You need a custom facilitator backend to support that. Right now on like Coinbase, what I saw that they only support permit tokens of 3009 standard.
Yeah, so other token must support that standard.
They have the USDC. I mean, yeah, they made upgraded USDC for this.
I'm Kendall, and here's my co-researcher, Naman. And today we are here to present bonded ERC7683. So how many of you guys are aware of across architecture and how it bridges assets with intents and solver network? Yeah. So, okay, no problem. So we are also going to be, acknowledging how Across is working at this point. So if you might know, Across has standardized their intents and solver networks with the help of ERC7683, which was released early this year, if I'm not wrong. And it has, so it has an architecture where users request an intent to bridge asset X from chain A to chain B, and there is an intent network or solvers network who get their intent and fill their intents directly, like by sending that asset X on chain B from their wallet, and the users send those assets to an escrow contract, and those assets live in their escrow contract until the Oracle settlement is done. So relayers wait before getting repaid. This is the standard model that Across has at this point. So the motivation is like users want fast, cheap, safe cross-chain transfers, which Across has been doing since a long time. And existing fast bridges is equals to like capital intensive for relayers. As I said, it's capital intensive for relayers to wait until the cross-chain settlement is done, so that they could get repaid for their work. And settlement oracles are slow versus the US expectations. And the goal is to decouple capital cost from oracle latency. The motivation is to decrease the capital cost across the relayers network, so that it's capitally efficient to for safe cross-chain transfers. And the existing designs, as I said, either you trust a relayer such that users pays relayers on origin chain, relayer sends funds, executes intent on the destination chain, no escrow, no oracle, instant settlement for relayer, but you have to trust the relayer. It's totally centralized, and it's hard to have many independent competing relayers in this case, and to trust a pool of relayers gets more complicated. It is, but the pros are it is extremely capital efficient, no escrow, no locking of funds, simple UX and implementation. With the escrow model, which Across has today, user deposits into the escrow contract on the origin chain, relayers funds on the destination chain, and the settlement oracle proves that the filler has filled on the destination chain, and then after after an hour or maybe 7 days for optimistic oracles, it repays back to the filler. And trust minimized, supports multiple relayers, and the cons is relayer capital gets locked until oracle challenges gets finalized. And so we are presenting global bond as a collateral and pivoting this direction in such a way such that there is no escrow contract. Let's get right into it. So use a single collateral bond. So relayers can fund a global collateral bond on any single chain, and this bond could be used as a collateral in case relayers are the malicious actors and they don't fill the users, or maybe due to reorgs they face issues. So one global bond per relayer backs all the supported routes. User wants to bridge assets from X to Y, Y to X, X to Z, etc. And if user intends to bridge X amount and Y is the amount of global bonded capital. So let's take an example. If user wants to bridge 100 USDC and Y is the global bonded capital is around 1000 USDC. How it works is user sends those 100 USDC directly to the relayer on the source chain, and the relayer fills the user on the destination chain with the desired asset of the user. And this is like one of the best cases. And it goes something like this. So there will be like multiple users, so there will be multiple unfulfilled intents, and the global capital, that is global bonded capital, should be greater than those unfulfilled intents. And in this case, the user would directly send the assets to the relayer would send them to the destination chain to the user. It works flawlessly. In the second case, so what if I as a user I'm trying to bridge $2,000, but the global bonded capital is just having $1,000. So for example, if I raised an intent something like this, relayers would fill me $2,000 on the destination chain. But how will it work if, let's suppose, if there are malicious relayers or malicious actors or chain reorgs? User would lose their funds as relayer didn't fill their intent on the destination chain. User would definitely lose $2,000, and the global bonded capital just has $1,000 in it. So even if someone raise a dispute, the global bonded capital will just refund them the maximum capital that they have, which is $1,000. So in this case, user would lose $1,000. But in this model, it will fall back to the escrow model of across, which is definitely again like the $2,000 will be sent to an escrow contract if and only if the user intent is greater than the bonded capital, or maybe user intent is greater than bonded capital minus the unfulfilled intents which are already going on in the network. So it falls back to sending the assets to the escrow contract, and those escrow contracts would lock the funds. Your relayers would send them the funds on the destination chain, and this escrow contracts would release the funds to the relayer once the Oracle fulfillment is done. This is the bonded model. It would be easier to understand it in this diagram. As I said, user intent, standard ERC 7683 intent could be integrated with across protocols design at this point. I want to swap XUSDT from chain A to USDC on chain B. If X amount is less than the bonded capital on the like the global bonded capital on a single chain, if X is less than that, yes, funds sent to the relayer on chain A. Users get filled on the destination chain instantly by the relayer. If they doesn't get filled, the global bonded capital will refund them once the Oracle fulfillment is done on the source chain. So no point of malicious actors acting maliciously, or there are any reorgs, or many such cases. But if no, it would fall back to the escrow model where those assets would be locked, or I would say it would be topped up to the already bonded capital which is lying around. It would top it up, and this bonded capital will be used as an escrow contract for this particular transaction, and the relayer wouldn't get repaid, I would say, unless and until he or she fills the user on the destination chain, or and Oracle fulfillment is finalized. How is it capital efficient? So in the escrow contract, we saw that there is no locking of capital. There is no double spending as compared to our model. So how if you think deeply, at the first glance, you will
you'll think that our model is not as capital efficient as the Cross's model because we need 2 times the funds of the users who want to bridge. So, for example, if someone wants to bridge $1 million, I would need $1 million on the global bonded capital contract, as well as I would need $1 million funds in my wallet such that I could fill the user on the destination chain. But if we actually see, if we actually go in depth, so let's take an example of $1,000. So let's suppose if the relay bond or the global bond is $1,000, and origin and destination chain takes 2 seconds for every block. The settlement oracle takes 1 hour to finalize. These are the assumptions. So bonded model would basically, in the bonded model, what it would do is user sends the funds on to the relayer on the source chain. The relayer could wait for 2 blocks to get those assets visible on the source chain, and to actually wait to actually fill the user on the destination chain. It could just wait for 4 seconds, and the max fresh payments per hour should be is equals to 900 transactions, and each so let's suppose if every user is trying to bridge $1,000, it could be $900,000 per hour of throughput with our model, and with the same $1,000 bond reused across payments every time. So in this case, the relayer would just have to have $1,000 as their as the upfront amount. But in the escrow model, so let's suppose if $1,000 of USDC is locked in the escrow contract, and if there are, again, if we take the same example, if there are 900 transactions, it would be $900,000 locked in the same contract for an hour, or maybe for 7 days in case of optimistic or optimistic design rollups. So it would be up to 900x more capital inefficient than our bonded design. So yeah, high level flow. So so this would basically have a turnstile contract on both source chain and destination chain, which would keep records of each state transition that has been done, and it would update every state transitions, every state changes, and we have a couple of I would say variables that keep records of each user's its transactions, along with the cumulative payments, unfulfilled orders, fulfilled orders, total cumulative payments that has been already filled, etc. Yeah, this is one of the feature. So users could also choose if these are mint and burn tokens. User could directly choose to opt in slower but cheaper fills, which doesn't have relayer fees. I'm sorry. And yeah, that's the summary. Yeah, this research references from across and Paradigm, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah. Yeah, we also need to highlight some of the reorg risks. So let's suppose there is trusted API that users would need to trust to read from the global bonded capital lying on one chain. So if you are reading those, if you are reading the amount of assets which is lying on the global bonded capital on chain A from chain B, we are currently having a limitation of, I think, using a trustful API, I would say, and not use a cross-chain oracle for the same. And the second limitation is, so let's suppose what if users, users have filled all the orders, relayers have filled all the orders, and the chain me, which gets reorg for a lot amount of time, for an hour or so. So all the transactions that have been performed on chain me, for let's suppose, let's take an example in which $900,000 of transactions were fulfilled. So let's suppose if this 1 hour of blocks gets reorged on a chain, all the data will be wiped out, and in this case there is no such capital on the bonded contract which would refund $900,000 of users' funds to their chains. So yeah, this is one of the limitations. for this design. But yeah, it works flawlessly otherwise.
So sir, can you do both through that again? I don't.
The reorg example.
Reorg is coming in.
Yeah, so basically, for example, in the global bonded contract, we have $1,000, and the total volume for a period of time has been more than 1,000, and the chain B gets reorged. So
in this case, the bonded capital contract would have to refund all the funds since it doesn't actually exist on the destination chain. So it has to refund all the funds to the user on the source chain, which are like, for example, 900 users with everyone with $1,000 of transaction, and the user and the contract would have to refund $900,000 of funds, but the contract only has $1,000.
yeah.
So, any more questions? Feel free to ask.
And there's some more questions we're going to realize.
Yeah. And yeah, feel free to discuss after the talk as well if you guys have any questions.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, so let's get started. So nowadays I go to crypto conferences and people ask me, right, people small talk, people ask me, what do you work on? It's always very difficult for me to answer because I've worked on so many different things in the blockchain space. So for the same reason, when I was thinking about what should I present, I also have trouble because I've also worked on many different projects. So by the way, I most of the time I work at George Mason University. I'm a finance professor. And but also like just a couple of months ago, I also met some developer and we're starting a little project called Async Swap Labs. And so we're building a MEV proof AMM. So the way I think about how do I structure my talk, and especially given that I don't necessarily know what will be of most interest to people. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to split the presentation in half. So the first half, I'm going to just give you a very, very quick overview of all the stuff I've worked on. And I'm not going to go into depth of any project, any topic, but just kind of give you, so here's the question that we studied, and here's the answer we find. And if you are interested in any of them, I'm happy to talk further. And then maybe in the last 10 minutes or something, I can tell you what we are cooking at Async Swap Labs. So yeah, so that's the plan for today. So when I first start doing blockchain research, that was actually now it's like 10 years ago. And so I approach it from a game theory perspective as an economist. So I like to look for incentives within the blockchain systems and use game theory to model them. And of course, I also, as time goes on, there are more and more data becomes available in the blockchain space. So I also do empirical analysis into the blockchain space. So the past 2 years, I've also been looking into cryptographic technologies and try to see how they can be applied into a broader scope of blockchain research. So for this, I probably will spend 20 minutes, just give you like high level overview about all the stuff that I've worked on over the past decade. And then I look into what we look at asynchronous swaps. Okay. Yeah, so I tell my students, don't have busy slides, but this is, I fall to my own preaching because I was like preparing for the slides because for all these papers I have, if I just combine all the slides together, it kind of blows up to 200 slides. So I don't think I can finish them all. So eventually I just do the lazy path, say, okay, I'm gonna just throw them all over here, and I'm going to go over one of each one. I'm just telling you kind of what are the gist of it, how I intellectually connect them together, and why I do research in those spaces. And then feel free we can chat more afterwards on any of these topics. So when I first start looking into blockchain, that was around 2016. At the time, there's not many things to study, and there's Bitcoin, and there was maybe a Litecoin, and then Ethereum was nobody really understands what Ethereum is back then, right? So at the time, there was
going back to 2016, there was big debate about the scaling war, about the decentralization and centralization in the blockchain space, about like whether mining pools is going to take over and re-centralize blockchain in the first place. So back in 2016, I started looking into this problem, and the question at the time I was trying to understand that, okay, if there are strong economic forces for mining pools to arise, would that same economic force basically also lead to a merger between among different mining pools? And eventually, if we have a large mining pool snowballing, that is going to basically destroy all the purpose of decentralization that Bitcoin promised in the first place. So for that, we spent like 2 years thinking about this problem. Eventually, here's high level. What we find is that once you as a mining pool, once your pool becomes large, you will have tendency to charge higher fees to the miners because you just provide better risk sharing benefit to the miners. And because you charge higher fees, you will tend to have slower growth rate than the other pools. And this creates actually a very natural mean reverting force to ensure the decentralization of mining pools. So there's not going to be a single mining pool snowballing, and actually what we see is an oligopoly of different pools competing with each other. And we also look into the data, and the data also supports our theoretical, our theory. So that was the paper. I mean, so like one thing that works in the finance area in business school is that every paper takes years to publish. So the paper we really start like by the end of 2016, early 2017. And the paper eventually got published in 2021. Okay, so that's the first paper I look at. So the reason why I am interested in those like the dynamics between pools is because I think even though people may not talk about it a lot, but I still think decentralization is the key defining feature of the blockchain space, and we should always pay attention to that. And so along with that paper, one byproduct of that paper is that we have a paper that later on I collaborate with CS colleagues, and we create a robo-advisor for miners. If you're a mining farm, you have a lot of hash rate, and how do you allocate across different mining pools? At that time, there are a lot of websites tell you, okay, like if you have hash rate, how do you allocate your computing power across different chains, across different proof of work chains? But our emphasis is that, okay, not only you want to diversify across different chains, you may also want to diversify across different mining pools, because the event of a single mining pool, getting a reward, they are independent events. So like if you allocate your hash rate across different mining pools, you can actually earn a higher Sharpe ratio. So that's a byproduct of this paper. And then also as another byproduct of our study, initially we went out to study, okay, the concentration and the centralization and decentralization in the proof of work space. But we also in the process we also find that the rise of mining pools is associated with the higher electricity consumption of a blockchain, of a Bitcoin mining. So what we showed is that just like from a case in which there's no pools versus when the mining is completely dominated by mining pools, that is going to have a 10 times boost on the electricity consumption of mining. So at that time, electricity consumption is associated with basically pollution, carbon emissions, or anything, all the bad thing that you can think about. And I think that's also the reason why people move on to study about proof of stake. So starting from last year, the mining thing has always been on the back of my mind. So last year, with my colleagues, we also work on a project trying to understand how our thesis that Bitcoin mining can actually be, just proof of work mining can actually be good for the environment. So there are a lot of discussions in the community saying that, okay, if mining uses renewable energy, it can become carbon neutral. But we want to go a step further to say that it's not only when it uses renewable energy, it can be carbon neutral, but actually the fact that it can actually subsidize the adoption of renewables, so actually it becomes actually cleaner, right? It's actually better for the environment. So in this sense, a proof of stake is actually bad for the environment. So this is a working paper. So it's one of my 200 slides. I'm not going to show it today, but if anyone is interested on that, we can chat further about this. So I talked with like the mining chip developers, like think about Bitmain and Carnan, and about these ideas, and they seem to agree with that. So I'm kind of have more confidence in my theory. So so that's one theme that is about mining. Another theme is about that actually, this is also a paper I started in 2017, gets published actually last year. And so that was a paper that was during the ICO boom. I want to understand what is the value of tokens and why tokens can help with the jump-starting digital platforms. So we basically argue that tokens can have values beyond just financing. So I gave a talk in 2018 at SEC about this paper, but I don't think it has any impact on their decision making. So they do whatever they want to do. But anyway, so but I still think I hope that the message there can be more heard by regulators. I think they're changing their stance. Of course, not because of some academics write about it, but I think they are now gradually pivoting toward the right direction. So and then 2019, there was this discussion about how to transit to a proof of stake and how to incorporate Byzantine fault tolerance protocols into the permissionless blockchain setting. So I still think that's an unresolved problem about how do you do BFT protocols when the computer nodes may have strategic incentives, and because we are in a permissionless setting. So like the people talk about this economic safety, which I don't really like that term. So in that project, what we try to do is to have a BFT protocols together with how do you analyze a BFT protocol when you have nodes to be incentive, that they have strategic incentives in place. So I think a very useful economic concept that can be applied to the analysis of this topic is this concept, so-called ambiguity aversion economics. So it's a concept that's quite well known in economics, but I don't see computer scientists or developers in the space actually use that framework. So that's something we've been working on. I think that there are a lot of unresolved problems in that paper because we are currently studying a very simple model. But I do think that the framework of ambiguity aversion will be useful for analyzing BFT protocols with the strategic nodes. So if anyone is interested in ambiguity aversion, well, I'm happy to talk more about this. Also, just in the realm of game theory and mechanism design, there is a lot of discussion about MEV fair redistribution. A lot of protocols has been doing that, and different protocols being proposed. But we found that it's quite difficult to compare different protocols. So we will try to come up with a unified framework so that we can compare and contrast different proposals for MEV fair redistribution. So I think a very useful concept here is so-called the Shapley value in cooperative games. So this is like a little paper that we write to how to apply this framework to analyze different proposals put forward in the ecosystem about how to fairly redistribute MEV. So that's one thing. And also a lot of discussions about the optimistic scaling solutions, basically optimistic rollups. So the idea is that the fact that you have stake in place and the threat of being slashed will prevent you from doing any bad things. But if we actually do a careful game theoretical analysis, I think that it's actually that promise is broken. I talked to Arbitrum folks and they kind of agree with this. So, but nevertheless, they progress with their solution. So that's also something I learned, just like in the crypto space. There could have a lot of solutions that are theoretically not working, but just in practice just work so well. And a lot of things that just theoretically works well, just in practice just never take off. So apparently, I mean, don't want to use this to kind of attack existing system, but I just want to say that this is also a humble pie that I eat. That like I think theory is useful, but also when it encounters in the reality, so sometimes game theory itself maybe needs some modification. By the way, like if there's any questions, please feel free to jump in. I know that this is really not giving enough I know this is really not giving enough essence, okay, but because the limited amount of time I have, because I don't know what people's interests are, so I just want to give a overview about everything that's out there. Yes, please.
What was the summary and the feedback about the tokens and how they are related to the real world?
This one? So I gave to when I talked to SEC, the SEC has this so-called DERA, the Department of Economic Analysis. So I think at that time, these economists, they received it quite well. I would say I gave this talk in 2018, half of them probably don't have any idea what I'm talking about. And another half, which have an idea, they think it kind of makes sense, right? But I think SEC as a space is heavily run by lawyers. So economists there are kind of in a supporting role to the lawyers, right? They are kind of providing support to lawyers' agenda. So I think economists, they get it. And but I think in real decisions is just done by the lawyers.
What was your summary of the result?
Oh, my summary about that is that if we think about if you're creating a peer-to-peer platform and you have this chicken and egg problem to bootstrap it, and we show that launching a token could be a way to resolve this problem. And the way you can think about it is that there are two features of a token that is useful for this role. And first is that it's very valuable within the eco platform. But also when it's first launched, it has no real value outside of the platform. And I think those both features actually are quite important. It's like if you are willing to spend real resources to buy something that is useful within the platform, but has no use outside of the platform, then the fact that you are spending the resources actually commit you to actively play within the protocol. And also because the fact that token sales is transparent on the blockchain, other people can see, oh, okay, there are people buying those tokens. So they can also be convinced that there will be future activities on it. So that kind of resolves this coordination problem. So that's kind of the gist of that paper. Yeah. Okay, great, thanks. Yes?
What real research around crossing using
Which one?
crossing bridges?
Oh, yes. So there are two papers on this. So this one is more like a summary paper. So I think the paper now is maybe a bit outdated. At the time, we were looking at those arbitrary general message passing protocols. So that one is kind of summarizes what are the different designs on that space at that time. And then we have little theory just proving there's a trilemma in the design of this. So that's that paper. And we kind of also started very early, but just these journals take forever to publish. So, and this one is with CS colleagues. Though that's a more empirical paper, we look at various attacks on the bridges. So just empirically documenting what's going on there. Yeah, that's one. Okay, good. So yeah, okay. Since we're talking about here, so there's some empirical. Yes.
Can you very shortly explain what was the incentive issue in the optimistic scaling solutions that you got?
Yes. So in the optimistic solution, the idea is that, okay, I put money there and somebody is going to be watching me, right? And somebody watch me, and if they find me that I'm not doing the good thing, they're going to slash me, right? So now think about the analogy. So it's like we are in Argentina, right? I have incentive to steal other people's wallets, right? So and then what deters me? Well, the police may catch me and throw me in jail, right? That prevents me from doing the bad thing. But also think about it, for police, like patrolling the street, watching every people's hand, see you are not putting your hand in other people's pocket, it's costly, right? So now think about we can think about by contradiction. Okay, suppose that the optimistic solutions actually fulfills its promise so that nobody steals. If nobody steals, then for the police, if I patrol very hard, I'm not going to catch any bad guys. And then the way that they are designed is I only get rewarded if I catch someone bad. So I don't have the incentive to actually look around because I'm not going to catch anything. So if I don't have this incentive, nobody patrols, no police monitors, why don't I steal? It's stupid not to steal, right? So you can see just by proof by contradiction that the ideal case of nobody actually does bad thing, it just cannot happen. And actually the only equilibrium would be people will steal with some probability. And police will also try to monitor with some probability. And with some probability, you can steal and do not get caught. Yeah. That's the...
You could bring in, like, the participants in an optimistic scaling social ecosystem, like, who can take that data to monitor and output accuracy, like, always monitoring their social life.
Right.
But, like, even in the future, you could bring in other participants, side and consider that someone who is doing deep bionic optimistic evolution has a link setting to catch people who are stealing. So,
yeah, so...
bring that in.
Yeah.
Like,
indeed. So, like, I mean, the kind of the conclusion is only valid to the extent we are modeling people's incentive correctly. If people have different incentives than what, like, a protocol would prescribe, like, yeah, the protocol is your baby, you are actually be willing to do it anyway. That would be, but I think that probably is true for now because if you're at the early stage. But if we believe that in the future, we want this to be a self-sustaining, very successful protocol, and if there has been 10 years that nothing really happening, how do we know that? And they can claim that we are still monitoring it. How do you know, right? That's the idea.
What if the reward for acting bad in the network is more in the incentives provided by the network for acting good? So as you said, like incentive issues in optimistic scaling culture, for actors to act good, we should provide incentive, and not just slash their incentives when they boycott it. When the reward for acting bad is significantly much higher, which it is in most of the cases.
Well, so if the reward of acting badly is very high, it certainly makes the problem even worse. But I think our central thesis is that even this reward is not that high, as long as it's positive, and as long as the cost of monitoring is positive, then we cannot have 100% secure system. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the questions. Yeah.
Regarding the RWA research, have you looked at it like from a project perspective? Like have you identified different players in the space that you find exciting?
So RWA is something really early. So we started like this January, just earlier this year, and what we did in this like a little working paper is that we basically go onto the rwa.xyz website and we collect all the data there, and we want to see what are across different asset classes, what are the different what are the legal structures behind these different products, and what are some of the empirical patterns in their transactions. So on top of my head, what I can tell is that, so there's some interesting facts that I found. One is that there's actually quite concentration in terms of who is providing the legal infrastructure. That's one thing. And second is especially the RWA and the biggest sector for RWA, at least from our data, we show is like actually private credit. And it's actually, that's not what I initially expected. But I think the space is fastly evolving, so I cannot tell whether it's going to be just a temporary phenomenon or last very long. And also, we look at like the RWA of equities, and they turned out to be, there is not many activities. People tout about the RWA provide more liquidity, but just like nobody is really doing secondary market trading. So so that's what else I have not talked about. So this is one thing that I found is interesting, is that we tend to look for information from explorers, and explorers, we found that explorers cannot always be trustworthy. So at the time, like we look at that time there was doing this, Ethereum was on this beacon chain, so the merge has not happened yet. So we're trying to analyze the proof of stake of it. So initially what our paper actually the interesting story is the following. So we first find that, we want to look at whether the slashing mechanism actually is working because of the reason I have in mind. I want to see whether the slashing mechanism is working. So we went out to go onto Beacon chain. So there was the beacon cha.in, or that just at that time is the main explorer for the Beacon chain. So we look at whether any slashable behavior, any slashable actions actually get caught and slashed. And to our surprise, what we found is that more than 75% of slashable actions are actually not slashed at all. So I think this is a pretty big news. So we go out and tell people from Ethereum Foundation. So everybody's looking at it. And then what later on we realized is that, because if that is true, that become a big thing, right? It's just like telling me all the Ethereum stuff are doing on the proof of stake is just invalid. But what later on, what we will figure out is that because we use data from the Explorer, so actually it's the Explorer has some stale information, and so the Ethereum itself is fine, but the Explorer, the main Explorer, was actually broken. So the data is not reliable there. And because of that, I also tend to have the habit of comparing records from different explorers, and I found there's a lot of incidents that just things are not consistent with each other. So the words of caution is that if we use Explorer, just be mindful of that they can be not reliable. How good I'm with time? Maybe I'm skipping some others. If people don't ask any question about this, maybe it's not of interest to you. This one may be of interest. So we want to look at how does token launch affect the incentives in the GitHub development activities for these crypto projects. So what we found, it is still very early stage, so some of the results need to be vested. And but what we found is that whenever there is a token launch, we tend to find afterwards a significant decrease in the development activities. Okay, and but that's only association, but that's not necessarily causation. We cannot say that it's token launch that leads to a drop in development activities. Because one analogy could be like, I take a pill and I do a surgery and later I died. I cannot say that's because the surgery or the pill that made me die, because I'm going to die anyway. And the surgery actually prolonged my life a little bit, right? So I cannot say the causal story. So we do some further statistical analysis. So far our findings seems to suggest is that when the project is not doing that well, okay, is about to kind of lose its steam, they begin to launch tokens. And the tokens actually does help boost their activities. But it's just not enough. So that's why we see unconditional there's an association with the token launch and a drop in activity. But it's early stage stuff, so we need to go back and check the results. So, but I think we have done quite a lot of robustness tests. It's kind of there, but I don't want to say this is like a finalized result there. Yes.
Approaches did you guys look at?
Oh, this one? So we use the all 6,000 projects on the Electric Coin Capital report. So whichever is included in the report, we include them. So that, of course, because 6,000 projects, so it includes a lot of shitty projects, right? So, but we just want to be very objective, don't want to pick and choose. Yeah. So I think one thing that we want to do later is to dissect the sample into kind of projects that we probably care about versus just the entire sample. There's a new TE application, which I find is useful, interesting to me. I don't know how it's going to be interesting to the audience, because I found TE to be quite useful, but so far, most of the discussion has been used around blockchain applications. But I think if we were trying to onboard a lot of people outside of blockchain, I also want to find non-blockchain applications. And so here's one application that comes to me. That is actually this is what I did in the summer. I recruited about a dozen of high school kids. They have no idea about TE before. Okay, so I just tell them that, okay, if we look at academic papers that gets published, a lot of them, they have codes and available. And how do I know the codes actually generates the stuff that is being presented in the paper? So I asked them to use TE to do the verification. So right now, this thing, how it works is that if you submit a paper, the paper gets accepted, you also submit the codes, and then there's gonna be a very poor guy, the so-called data editor, his job is basically just every year just replicate hundreds of other people's submitted codes. It's a terrible job, okay? So we want to remove the burden of that poor guy. Okay, and also a lot of journals down there are actually now charging extra fees because they want to pay for people who are willing to fill in that very terrible position. And so we say, well, why don't we actually have a standard? So when you submit your replication package, you actually go through a TE. So you also submit your proof along with that. So then the poor guy just need to do the verification. So simplify his task much easier, and also kind of disciplines authors so that they have to format their codes in a reasonable way. So this is really kind of proof of concept, and the reason I want to recruit high school kids to do that, because I want to show that this is really simple to do. Any researchers, you can potentially adopt this, and hopefully, I mean, academic application is what I'm familiar with. But beyond that, hopefully maybe like encountering fake news or other maybe more commercially viable application may start from here. But usually we always start from something small. Okay, so I think that's basically the first part of it. Maybe I've already taken too much time, and but thanks all for the engagement. So okay, so maybe like 10 minutes wish. I just tell you what I've been working on at Async Swap right now. So that's where I'm waiting this is something I really just get like 1 week ago online just for Dev Connect. So I don't think it fits really well because it's really just a very rough job, but I think better than nothing. Okay, so what got me interested in this is that everybody knows the MEV problem, and MEV problem is I think is quite detrimental to the DeFi space. And there are many solutions that have been proposed how to overcome MEV. Specifically in my talk, just remaining maybe 10 minutes-ish, I'm just only going to talk about sandwich attacks because that's one most obvious example of MEV extraction. And so people talk about like redistribution mechanisms or mitigation mechanism. I think in the previous talk, there was talked about, like, for example, like in the intense market, right? You can submit your transactions maybe to some trusted entities, and the trusted entities maybe you trust them that they're not going to extract MEVs from you. So there are many different methods that's been proposed, and here is the idea that we have. And we see that, okay, Uniswap v4 introduced this hook. The hook really became available earlier this year. And so we actually think that v4 hooks could actually be a useful way to help us overcome sandwich attacks. So the idea is the following. If you are not familiar with how hooks works, is that in Uniswap v4, whenever you have a transaction, you can attach a so-called before swap logic and an after swap logic to surround this transaction. What it does basically restricts, like, okay, the state of the chain has to be in certain state or certain condition need to be satisfied before this transaction can be executed. And then also after this transaction is executed, there are some additional logic that need to be applied. Right? That's the idea. But if we think further about it, so that's when we start from this, but we then think that, well, if I'm thinking about business applications, the fact that I can only have one single transaction to surround it between hooks, that may be very restrictive. Ideally, I would like to have multiple transactions like put between different conditions. Then that would be more useful. One example could be, for example, if I want to impose some transaction ordering logic, if I can put all these transactions there and use hooks to restrict what logic I can apply to them, for example, what sequencing rule I need, then that may be useful. So, but this is not easy to do with traditional transactions, and this is what we find there's still called async swap feature in the Uniswap v4, and the idea is that we can you can choose to submit transactions in an asynchronous fashion, and then those transactions will be on-chain, and they're going to be restored, they're going to be recorded as ERC6909 token temporarily on the chain. And then later on, the filler transaction can later on clear all the asynchronous transaction that has been recorded. And that filler transaction is one single transaction, so that you can actually indeed impose a hook logic around it. So for example, we can say, well, for example, like if you order transactions as a filler, you have to always alternate between buys and sells. That's just, I mean, there are a lot of different logics that we've been using, but this is the simplest logic we can basically eliminate sandwiches, because you have to have buy and sell, buy and sell, buy and sell. You can see sandwiches just is not possible. Of course, I think this is one example, but just the idea about using asynchronous swaps to unlock more business application, I think is just bigger than what's being proposed here. This is just a more concrete example. Yeah. So I think what are the benefits of doing this? First of all, like the filler can be permissionless. Anyone can come in and to fill in. So you no longer, it's not like in an intense market. You have to like you have trust in some trusted entity. Like they're gonna promise you that they're not gonna exploit you, right? And also the cost for those fillers is actually very low. You almost like you have zero capital requirement to enter into this. And so also if you order the transaction the right way, you can also minimize price volatility. That also protects LPs. I know like for a lot of DEX, we know that a lot of DEX, the problem is like to onboarding the LPs and because of the impermanent loss, right? So if we can decrease the price volatility, that will also be easier to onboard more liquidity providers. Yes?
Why wouldn't the sandwich attacker just fill the transaction immediately after it was submitted and then sandwich off?
Okay, yeah, you can do that. You can do that, but if there are multiple transactions, then it means that you need to be, if there are multiple transactions happening at the same, submitted at the same time, then whenever you try to fill it, you have to fulfill this logic. Only if when their transaction, for example, is very sparse. Remember, there's only, for example, one single transaction after a lot of long time, so then you can have time to. But that also requires the filler just need to monitor the chain and more frequently.
Does it ever have a delay event? So could it be, is it like you have to be in the next block to be able to fill all the previous async transactions, or can it be within the same block?
I think that could be a feature that we can add. We are not thinking about that yet, but maybe that's a feature we can consider adding. I think that may be useful.
Yeah, so I'm worried that like if you have a transaction like a stock which it has, and it's been basing, immediately after the filler will just background,
right,
and that filler,
right. I think it's a relevant question. Maybe we should add. We are not. I mean, this is still early stage stuff, so we haven't not added that yet. But I think maybe it's something we can play with. Yeah. So like the punchline of this async swap labs is that we use this async swap feature, try to unlock new business applications. So this is something really early. So we got a Uniswap Foundation grant, small grant, and then I'm working with Meek, who's a smart contract engineer, to build this up. So any questions and comments, please feel free to add. I hope I'm on time. Yes.
So we talked about it. I was just curious, like if you put every transaction in the memory, do you need to change the current PC node, everything? Because the transaction assumed was saved from the wallet or the application. And how do you basically, you cannot use current PC node?
That's a good question. I am not super familiar with how like different RPCs they are coded. So that I think it's a possibility. It is a possibility. It is a possibility. It is a possibility. Yeah. So I need to think like look into the details. Yeah.
You go ahead. Then the transactions will be stored on chain, right?
It is stored on chain. Yeah. But I think his question is like, what if the RPC does not read that on-chain information? So, because a lot of people do not directly look at chain, they look at RPC. So I think that's a possibility. Yeah, that's a possibility. Something we need to think about. Yes, certainly.
Second question is once you fetch the transactions, how would you take a chance? Or if you're not thinking about the first one?
Obviously, that transaction going down to the production layer.
So once we have a bunch of transactions.
Transaction.
Yeah.
All you send the batch.
Oh, the batch is already always on chain, and so when you send a filler transaction, basically when you send a synchronous order, it's stored on chain, but it doesn't change the state, right? So then just like the filler transaction basically just actually make the state change to take place.
Hi everyone, great to see you, great to meet you. My name's Finn. I used to work at Nethermind as a DeFi research analyst, but also kind of protocol research. Before that, I worked at Mango Markets after the exploit. I'm trying to fix the risk engine. Generally, my background is like half quant, a little bit of stochastic process modeling, and now I'm doing a startup called Null, which is surrounding total return swaps, which I won't be presenting today, but I will be presenting something equally as interesting about inclusion preconfirmations or preconfirmations in general and base rollups. So who here thinks that 12 seconds for L1 is a little bit too long? I think everyone. It's a bit annoying that you submit a transaction and, like you could take a sip of coffee. And who else doesn't like that L2s are not decentralized? We came to this industry for decentralization. Although there's canonical bridges, like most L2s are stuck on like stage 1, and a bunch of them in stage 0 as well. So this is not good enough. So, okay, Justin Drake about two years ago decided let's talk and invent something called a base rollup. And a base rollup is kind of like a normal rollup, but it allows the L1 validator or proposer to give the sequencing for the L2. So it's like the L1 validator is like, cool, I'll validate the L1 block, but I'll also run a sidecar, like a different client within the client of Ethereum to validate L2 blocks too. And so you have an L2, which is at 12 seconds as well. But it's fully decentralized and it's run by all the same L1 validators, and it inherits all of the same security promises that L1 does. And it does this also through restaking. So you go through like an eigenlayer system and everyone stakes all of their ETH. And then if the L1 submits an L2 block, which is not proper, then it gets slashed. So it's like a way that you can wrap an L1 validator as an L2 validator. And everyone thought it was really cool. But the problem with it is that 12 seconds is too slow for an L2 as well. So they invented inclusion preconfirmations, or just preconfirmations in general. And what is that? So say you are this user, and these are the different slots with different proposers behind each of them. And this proposer or validator says, I want to service a promise to the user. And what is the promise that they're going to say? They're going to say, well, I'm promising to include your transaction within the block when my block comes. So as a user, you say, okay, I know that there's, within the look ahead of different proposers, I know that one of them will be promising to include my transaction, whether that's a swap, whether that's a transfer or anything. And that's really cool because then you get instant confirmation. Then you have a system in which it executes in like 0.1 seconds or however fast the RPC is. So a preconfirmation is a promise made by a validator using a base rollup system that they will like include your transaction or execute your transaction for you. It's not very easy to create, and for like the last 2 or 3 years, people have been trying to figure out how to make it as best as possible. And yeah, so nothing is free in crypto, and it costs money to get this promise serviced by one of these validators who have opted into a base rollup. And this extra economic payment is called an inclusion tip, or sorry, preconfirmation tip. And this tip is paid to the validator to say, thank you so much for including my promise and servicing my promise and putting your ETH at risk for the sake of it, and making my experience on a blockchain better. But how should it be valued? So this is like the really difficult part because it depends on the promise. You can have some promises which are like, I promise to execute your transaction in the same state as you want me to. So I promise to execute your transaction and ETH is trading at $2,000. And when I execute a transaction, ETH will be still trading at $2,000 on chain. Or the promise can be like, I promise to execute a transaction and the slippage will be 1%, and that's how much liquidity will be in the DEX, and it will be the exact same. So this is like one type of promise which falls broadly under the category of execution preconfirmation. So like you can basically halve preconfirmations into inclusion, which is like, just please promise to have me inside the block, and execution, which is more like, please include me within the block, but at the specific requirements that I want you to do it. And these are very difficult to underwrite as a validator, because how the hell are you supposed to promise all this really difficult stuff? So these are like way in the distance. But inclusion pre-confirmations are where we're at the minute, and they're quite easy to do because then you just promise, okay, like you're definitely going to be within the block, but we don't know where you're going to be in the block or what the block's going to look like. So inclusion pre-confirmations is what we're pricing. So how do we price these promises that you'll be in a block in the future? Let's start with what a block's worth. So a block used to be worth block rewards back in the day. And now they're not. Block rewards are 0. And gas fees through base fees burn ETH. So now ETH is deflationary. So like proposers don't really earn block rewards in the old-fashioned way now. They earn it through 2 other ways. Priority fees and MEV. Priority fees are the little bit of economic incentive that you add to your transactions so that so in case the block is full, the proposer says, okay, cool, I will include you because you paid me and nobody else paid me. And MEV is the shuffling of the transactions within the blocks so that you can just extract value from the unwilling retail who have made a trade. So these are kind of the 2 ways that are done at the minute. In the olden times, like 5 years, people wouldn't really know how to do MEV properly. You'd be running like a validator at home and it'd be too complex. So we invented MEV Boost, which basically created a pipeline of allowing other people to structure your blocks for you if you're a validator, and then you get some of the revenue for doing so. So the pipeline for MEV Boost, which is used for like 92, 93% of blocks these days, is that you have the user and some searches within the system, and they submit transactions to a party called a builder. And this builder, this is one builder, and there's like a huge amount of like builders. I mean, like a few builders which are in the system. And then this builder builds a block, and this block is given to a relay, which is supposed to be impartial. And this relay connects to all of the different validators which have opted in. And the builders basically make an auction. They say, look, I can build the best block with these transactions from users and MEV types of searches for MEV. And I promise that I'll give you the best, richest block possible constructed with all the transactions which want to be on chain at the minute. So this is like where we were before. So this is kind of like, this is where we are at the minute as well. Like this is how the value inside of a block gets created. So what are these different types of MEV which are found through users and searches transactions? One of them is SexDex arbitrage. If the price on Uniswap is like $2,000 and the price on Binance is $2,100, there's a very easy way just to buy on Uniswap and then sell on Binance very quickly if you just have assets on both. And then there's also sandwich attacks, which kind of was somewhat covered earlier, where you put a transaction before a swap happens on chain to pump up the price, and then you dump it straight after. Interestingly, like this is not as you think it is. Like mentally, it's not just like one transaction and then the swap and then another transaction where it's being sandwiched. Very often it's one transaction, multiple other transactions in the same pool, and then the exit sandwich on the other side. Or it can be 2 transactions and then lots of different transactions within within different pools, and then 2 exit swaps on the other side. So there's a lot of sophistication. If you're interested, I recommend looking at Jared from Subway. He makes amazing sandwich attacks on chain. And then there's atomic arbitrage as well. Backrunning, this is like the traditional 3 pools that you have, and you have like an interlink pool. So if you have ETH USDC and then ETH BTC and then BTC USD, if there's a mismatch in prices, then you can arbitrage very normally. There's just-in-time sandwich attacks, which are like I think specific to crypto, and these are basically abusing the fact that you can dump a bunch of liquidity into an LP position inside of a Uniswap DEX, and then remove it straight away as well. So you would basically say, here are the ticks that you're in for the price between like price 1 and price 2. There's a transaction like a swap here. You would front run. But the front run wouldn't be a swap. The front run would be, let's add a huge amount of liquidity to these ticks where the swap is happening. And then the back run is removing all of that liquidity straight after. So it's making the pool unbelievably liquid when the swap happens. And why you would do it is that you get all the protocol fees from the sandwich attack. So it's like a sandwich attack, which is not a sandwich attack through price. It's a sandwich attack through liquidity. And then there's liquidation MEV. If you have a lending market and somebody gets liquidated, then because there's a price change within the block, then you want to be the guy which is getting that liquidation fee. So how are these broken down? You have Sextex arbitrage here, makes about 25% of MEV. Sandwich attacks 15. There's like this complex category where you just can't classify it with any analytics tool. And then there's atomic arbitrage and just-in-time sandwich here. Cool. And then per day has some variance depending upon the markets and the cycles within it. So you can see the breakdown. You can also see like liquidations is like really tiny. It can be the case that there's so much competition there that all the payments to the proposers from the builders competes it away. So how can we model proposer rewards in a really clean way to calculate these inclusion preconfirmations? Let's take within a block n transactions, and they're all ordered from 0 to n. So 100 transactions, 0 transaction, 100 transactions. And let's say that the builder, what they get from this is the priority fee multiplied by the gas price that they pay plus some extra builder tip that they pay. So that's this part here on the right. The pie is kind of like what they earn. And the total amount of builder earnings within that block is just the sum of all the individual transactions that the builders are submitting here. So the sum of all of the different priority fees and builder tips that are paid. And the builders will only do this if the builders' earnings are higher than what they pay the proposer. So let's define here all of these builders' earnings minus this other variable here for proposer earnings as this, which tends to hold. And let's go from the perspective of the builder to the perspective of the proposer and say that the proposer per transaction is simply the builder's earnings from that transaction adjusted to remove this profit. So we're assuming here when we remove this profit that the market for block building is perfectly competitive. This is like the big assumption here that we have. But it roughly holds. I mean, these numbers are really close to each other in real life. So it's kind of fine. So if we basically create this economic model, these calculations based on the data that we have, and we do have data for the gas and the price paid in priority fees and the builder tips, this is all on chain, then we can create this chart here really easily, which is the cumulative earnings for a different point in the block. So this looks a bit confusing, but this is the start of the block, like from 0 to 0.5 million in gas. And these are the rewards earned by the proposer for that section of the block. So as you can see here, like the very top of the block, the very first few transactions are very rich. They earn the proposer a bunch of money, and that's because Sextex arbitrage sits at the very top of the block. You want to be secure in knowing that in the 12-second time period in which the prices on the DEX is dislocated from the sexes, that you can capture that delta. So top of the block, the proposers get rich. Most of the other parts of the block is kind of tapering off. They don't really care so much, and it's more or less linear once you get past the top of the block. This fits really well with a logarithmic regression, so you can just fit a logarithmic curve here. And this curve will tell you for at any point in the block how much you should expect to earn as a proposer. And so prediction of the value in the block is equal to, after you fit a regression, this equation here. So, okay. Inclusion preconfirmations, they're meant for like transactions which are not contested, like not sex-text arbitrage and not complex types of MEV. So they are mostly bottom of the block transactions. They are not this area here. This will be reserved, and the block builder will give this to all the sex-text arbitrage. These transactions will come from the bottom. And so in that case, to price an inclusion pre-confirmation or a promise that we can give you this bottom of the block section, we read from this value graph downwards. We say, okay, say that the block is going to be full at 30 million, and your transaction is 5 million big. Let's take this slice here and measure the distance in the value that's worth. Like, let's just give you the value of the gas consumed, the opportunity cost, that the validator would have got from that anyway. And so we can create a value function here, which is the difference in the cumulative value per each. Like, we can basically just make a valuing function based on reading from right to left here, from this curve. Maybe a bit difficult to explain, but generally just like read y1 minus y something else here, and this value here is the value of the inclusion pre-confirmation that you should be paying. But it's not very helpful to have this chart when you're actually pre-confing things, because you want to be basically doing it knowing how much other things have been pre-confed in the past. So like if 15 million has been pre-confed and you need to pre-conf the next 5, that's different than if only 1 million has been pre-confed and you need to pre-conf the next 5. So you can pretty much say like, okay, for how much used gas has been pre-confed and how much your inclusion wants to be, how big your inclusion is, per inclusion, you can create this curve. So let's say that like 0 has been pre-confed and your transaction size is like 10 mil big, then this is the price here on the curve that you should be paying, like 2 Gwei on average. And then if like there's already 25 mil pre-confed and there's like no more space in the block, and your transaction size is like 5 mil big, then you should be paying a crazy amount of money because it's very expensive. There's not much space left in the block. And this curve is just the perfect way to figure out what you should be paying for a bit of block space in the future. Compared to constant pricing, if you have constant pricing over a block, it's just linear. If you just say it's costing 2 Gwei to do an inclusion pre-conf, then most of the time you're going to be either over or under the true value of that pre-confirmation. And if you just measure the difference between like a linear pricing model and this pricing model, then you'll either be like, again, like very much higher or very much lower than where you should be. So it's no economically rational reason to be linearly pricing inclusion pre-confirmations. It should be based upon the amount that's left. So I'm going to maybe skip over how we can improve it. Generally, this can be improved by simulating future expected proposer rewards. Proposer rewards follow trends. They can go higher, they can go lower, and you can calculate them with like LSTMs, and the last presentation did a bunch of other models for that. So that would just generally just shift this up or down, but it would maintain the same structure. Okay, cool. And then Chainbound has implemented the pre-confirmation protocol. And if you want to get instant pre-confirmations and instant transaction on Ethereum, you can use them, or Primev have MEV commit, or ETHGas currently exist as an alternative too. So yeah, it's like a really fun, slightly complex way to price pre-confs. Thank you. Yeah.
Are there other variables that could be considered, like time of day? I'm sure trading patterns differ across, the different times. So could that also be factored in?
100%. So that would like fall it like, okay, so this is the chart which we need to look at. So these are the rewards that proposers get, and you can see that there's some volatility within it. This is only after like 1,000 blocks, but generally throughout the day, proposer rewards fluctuate based on trading habits. So there's some like seasonality in how much proposers get paid within a block. But also, if you were going to improve this model, you would say, well, how close are we to that that block, which is going to be honoring my pre-confirmation? If I'm like 2 blocks away from that pre-conf block, should that be worth more than if that block is 15 blocks away or 30 blocks away? And there's a few different arguments for this. Some people say that it should be cheaper if you're closer, and some people say it should be more expensive if you're closer. I don't really know the answer to it and all the reasoning too well. But yes, like time is like a really like, it's a variable here where if you're going to improve it, it would be a really good one to do. Yeah. Cool.
Are you thinking the distribution of MEV, whatever as given, when you consider the optimal pre-confirmed pricing, or do you also debate about like how will you do the pre-confirmed pricing that's going to change the
Yeah, so that would come under the separation of pre-comps between execution and inclusion. So inclusion is mostly for transactions like transfers or basic swaps on pools which don't get MEV'd. Inclusion is just like, please include me. I don't care about MEV at all. Like you can still MEV me, like it's one-to-one as before. And execution would be like include my transaction, but also in a state which I don't get MEV'd on. So execution pre-confirmations would be a really good way to hedge against MEV, because you could pay what you expect that MEV to be, the value of that of the MEV to the proposer in the future, and the proposer will protect you from being MEV'd. So you could just give to the proposer the value of your MEV now. If you expect, and the proposer agrees to pay it.
So what's here is only about inclusion, right? You're not
Yeah.
zeros.
Yeah, this is only for inclusion, which should take like the bottom 50% of the block. This top 50 is much more contested. It's much more difficult to value correctly. Yeah. Cool. Alrighty. Any more? Or are we done? Thank you.
Hey everyone, so I am going to present about implementing Hypernova SDK in Rust. So about a year ago, I was working on a final year project which was generating storage proofs, and I came across the idea of IVC and the Nova folding scheme. So like after that, I thought that maybe I should be like implementing the Hypernova as an SDK, as an open source SDK. And the goal of this presentation would be to introduce it through Nova, then the construction of Hypernova and what are the improvements of that, and what are the current engineering challenges which I'm facing right now while implementing the Hypernova folding scheme. And also, like if anyone is interested in collaborating with the implementation, I would be happy to introduce you the code base currently which I have right now. It's not much. I've been working on it since like 15-20 days only, so it's comparatively very new. Just a minute. Okay, so like why do we need a folding scheme? So currently we already had IVC. The issue with IVC was that after like from starting from the state 0, we had to generate the proof and verify that whole proof within the next state. And it was like very computationally intensive, and it like consumed a lot of resources. So for that, like after Srinath Shetty from Microsoft came up with this Nova folding scheme and his team, and this is like how we got introduced to it. And so relation. So in Nova we use a certain term called the relation. So relation is basically, you can call it as a circuit. So in SNARS we don't actually in the mathematical term we call it relations, because it is always fulfilling a relation between the witness and the public inputs. So like what we use in Nova is the relaxed R1CS, and it is more like you can say more free than the R1CS, which only has the certain constraints. And we have like the error vector and additional you can say a value called u, which is used for like during the final construction. It is used to reduce all the errors in the Nova folding scheme. So the current constraint system, which I just explained, was the error vector, and the new equation which contains the e, and during that it will become like a 0. So here is like how the relax R1CS actually works. So we have like 2 instances, and we try to combine them into one single equation, and so this is like substituting and then replacing, regrouping, and we get this final left hand side, which you can see at the end of the slide, and on the right hand side. So in the code, we have currently the implementation of RealX R1CS in Nova repository. But the issue with the Hypernova is that currently, Hypernova uses a generalized scheme, which is a multilinear extension, and we have to convert this R1CS into that multilinear extension. So that is like a big problem for me right now to convert it properly and to reduce it. So like during this construction, we have this T vector, which is a very crucial for the folding schemes. So what it actually does is whatever the constraints which are not matching the errors from both the systems, it actually combines them, and our prover commits to this T vector in order to increase its security in the Nova folding scheme. Now, as with any other non-interactive ZK snark, we use VHMIR to kind of generate a randomness. And for this, the T vector also comes there. The commitment to the T vector is included for generating the randomness. So now in Nova we have two curves, and one is curve 1 and one is curve 2. So currently all the stuff which has all the points is on the curve 1, but all the commitments which are verified are on curve 2. And what happens is now the curve 2 is also the verifying these commitments on curve 2 also includes a lot of computation. So now the improvement of this on Hypernova will be we actually don't need two curves, we only need one curve, and we delegate the computation by doing the sum check protocol. So this is a accumulator which is currently in Nova, which is takes your initial state, compute the steps, and also generate the commitments. And the fold function actually takes the previous state, the previous inputs, and the commitment of that previous error, that cross vector T. And this is gets repeated for all the states which we are verifying. Now the IVC which I talked about was this. So we had input, then witness, then the proof also goes to the next instance, and then another witness comes. Then now it gets very complicated during this process. So then something came up with the cycle fold Nova. The cycle fold is currently implementation in which we actually don't verify the proofs on the curve, and we just only do certain commitment pairing checks. So it was intermediate between the Hypernova and the Nova folding scheme. So as you can see, on the prover side, it takes the instance and generates the proof of the CEC, and on the verifier side, it runs a small sum check verification for that particular CEC. Now I come to the Hypernova thing, and the issue was that only R1CS Hypernova can support multiple implementations, R1CS, Plonkish, and anything you want. Currently, I'm working with realized R1CS only, starting with it to convert it into multilinear extensions, and then proceeding forward with the Plonkish optimization, and then converting it to the MLEs. And so yeah, the recursion of two curves was large and expensive, so it took a lot of time to do that. Now Hypernova will just convert it into a general relation. So that general relation will allow us to represent all of our circuit types. So it will become kind of a modular. So right now we have many snark schemes in which you can just choose your automatization. You can choose your commitment scheme, and it's just a plug and deploy thing right now. So same thing, I'm aiming to do it for the Hypernova folding scheme also. So yeah, from two-way folding to multi-folding, Hypernova uses some concept called an instance. So the instance representation is the inputs, the witness, and the error vector beta, and we have the circuit representation with CCS, which was discussed in the previous slide, and we also have like the prover commitments. So now cross terms, as we discussed, there was one cross term which was there in Nova, and but in like Hypernova we have like multiple cross terms, and for that we also do like a commit and do a sum check for that verification. So it reduces the time by a lot. So yeah, the backbone of this Hypernova scheme is the sum check as the verifier, and it uses like re-randomization, which is like it adds dummy instances in between of our computations, which is actually for increasing the security of our ZK proof. So like it will hide the structure of the real witness. So between each instances, there will be random instances which are just not related to the computation. They're just added just to add noise to the computation. Yeah, so like currently the stage I am in is like I have implemented some primitives in Rust and like Pippinger algorithm in Rust and some other like commitment schemes, like made methods for that. But the things like the CCS representation and parsing is like currently like getting difficult for me. So the first difficulty is like to perfectly parse it and represent it in like a canonical way, and now if the representation is not like linked together, then the issue is like the math will not work. The proof will be like that. So for that, I need this CCS representation for this, and also use like the perfect randomness generator for like the re-randomization process, which is in like adding fake instances between the correct instances. Sorry. Yeah, first MSM, like now the MSM multi-scalar multiplication, the issue is that if it is not implemented in a correct manner, it takes almost like every like majority of the time for the computation. So currently like a POC and a playground in which I was trying to implement it, it took like almost 70 to 90% of the time for the like MSMs. And the main issue is that if it is taking like this much time for the MSMs, then I don't know, like it will take for a very small proof, it takes about an like hour and 50 with with mock R1CS representations. Those are not actually representations, but just with the mock ones. So that has become like another thing. Now re-randomization, yeah, like for this like now adding these re-randomizations between the instances, if I don't add this, like you can actually kind of predict about, like you can change the witness in between, and if it's not proper, then there is no use of this folding scheme. Then the open source library is just for the fun, it's not for usable for anyone. Now interop with the small snort back and forth the CE circuits. Now this issue is that now different snots have different encodings, and like field size and then like may use different curves. Now like even like if one like field is off, then the proof is like non-usable, and it generates like a bad proof for that. So like for the entire IVC chain, it needs to be like in a certain order, and for that I need to introduce some certain caching mechanisms which should be there without blowing up the memory size. So if I start storing everything in like suppose like a vector map or something like that, then the issue is like for the size, even like the computer runs out of the memory. So for storing those millions of points, then it's not a issue. So yeah, like this is like what I was working on, and yeah, if you guys have any questions and you want to collaborate on this, I'll be happy to do that. And currently it is just a self project, it's not like comes under anything, it is just a personal project of mine.
Hey everyone, this is Mohit and with me is Viraj. A little bit about me. I am like a full stack blockchain engineer, have been in this space for last 3 to 4 years, and have been contributing to open source, have worked with a lot of organizations like Singularity, Fleek, have researched with professors on a lot of projects. And yeah, I'm also like a hackathon geek, have been participating in hackathons, building products for different organizations. And now I'm like working on my own business, launching a product. Yeah, Viraj.
Hey, hi guys. My name is Viraz. I've been in the EVM space since about around 6 years now. Started as like participating through hackathons and stuff like that, and gradually sort of moved up and decided to move full time into Web3. And since then, I've been working at have worked at like different open source projects, some DAOs, some DeFi protocols, etc. as well. As a smart contract engineer mostly, and some backend work as well along with it. And lately, I've been also diving into the security side of things, like doing auditing and participating in contests or things like that, diving a bit into Rust side of things as well. And yeah, I'm lately also started doing some research along with Mohit as well, because we've known each other since some time. So yeah. Mohit's trying to start.
So today we would be discussing about our research project. I would say not only it's about research, but we were trying to build a product as well out of it, and which is called as peer swap, P2P cross-chain swap protocol. I mean, like as Viraj said, like we have been in touch for 1 year, and then like we found this problem of there is no platform currently where we can do P2P token exchanges. So let's say you have tokens with you, right? And currently what you do, you go to AMMs, you go to DEXs, and you basically swap on that. You bridge from one chain to another. But now let's say Viraj has some new ABC token on a new chain, okay, or on any chain, and he wants to sell it for some USDC tokens. I am there on the other side, let's say, and we are friends, or we just connected on Telegram, and I have like funds with me, the USDC tokens, and I want that new ABC token. How can we exchange these two things? You might say just send him like from the MetaMask wallet, and then he will send you back the tokens. But I mean, you cannot trust it. And we have seen a lot of people facing this problem of like they lose a lot of money by trusting some stranger. And even you cannot trust your friend, like you just met in the conference. You cannot send 1,000 USDC or 10,000 USDC. So as I said, like you might say there is DEX available for swapping and bridging, but maybe your token doesn't have liquidity on it. You launched a new token. You want some P2P mechanism. And also there are sometimes liquidity issues. So you have one token, let's say you want to sell 10 ETH for 10 USDC. But once you go on the DEXs, the slippage issue is there and the amount will change a lot, right? But what if like you can swap it with someone directly and he can give you exactly the amount, like 10 ETH for 10 USDC. But there is no secure platform. I don't think anyone has used any such kind of platform. So that is what we were researching on, like how to build this system where we don't take any control, but it's a totally fully decentralized system where you can exchange tokens with each other. We researched on multiple concepts, multiple fields, which we'll be discussing today, and we will also be talking about what we came up at. Some use cases before diving into the technical architecture. As I said, it can be also used as like a secondary and pre-listing market. So when a new chain launches a token, you get an airdrop and you can use that to sell it as a pre-listing market. And I mean, it will be having a lowest fees. You can get the desired swap, and you can even share it with like the social circle. You can send the funds like you can ask Twitter circle to like, please give me the money if you have that kind of platform. And now what were the requirements for it? Like when we were discussing, like Viraj and we were discussing about this, first of all, this needs to be trustless. There should be no dispute resolution required. I mean, you might say you can create a DAO who like solves a dispute, okay? Like on Binance, there is P2P thing, but it is not available for all the tokens and it is centralized. And there is dispute resolution, like Binance is ultimately checking all those things. We don't want that. We want it to be fully decentralized. There should be no middleman, I mean. We should not be the middleman. Relayer is fine, but our focus was it should be like distributed. It should coordinate a transaction. And you can, another requirement was you should be able to swap from any chain to any chain. Any new chain is launching, you should be able to swap between all of those things. So then we came up with the concept of hash locks and time locks. Anyone know about like this HLTCs? Anyone here know? Okay. So there is a concept of hash locks and time locks. I hope this is
blurred a bit.
This is visible. So let's discuss this, like how it works. So let's say you want to send somebody money, right? What you can do is you can put that money in a contract, in a smart contract deployed on a chain, but you lock that smart contract with a secret. Okay. You can see like Elias wants to send some funds to Bob. What he does is like he create a secret on his side, like you can think of it as a password, and computes a hash, which is like hash of the secret, and then sends it to the blockchain. Okay. Like on the contract is locked with that hash of that secret, and the funds are in that contract. Now what will happen is like once the HLTC is created, there is something called as time lock as well. I will discuss that. Time lock is like for this period of time, anyone can claim the fund if they have the secret. If they don't have the secret, after a period of time, it will automatically refund you. And there is a time T which is there. So HLTC gets created, you can share that secret with anyone, and then that person basically can put that secret, like can do a transaction with the secret, and if it's the right secret, he gets the funds. That is how HLTCs work. We devised and we extended this thing for cross-chain thing, because that was just one chain, right? I mean like one token on one contract, and that's it. What we did basically is Alice and Bob both are on different chains, chain A, chain B. Okay. Alice generates the secret S, hashes it as I said, deploys a source escrow contract. This is basically called as escrow contracts only. With that hash, okay, with that hash H. So nobody can take the funds from that source contract that is deployed on chain A, because until and unless you reveal a secret, which is just with the Alice, no one can take the funds. Once that is created, Bob can see, anyone can see on the platform, okay, Alice wants 1 ETH for 1 USDC. Do I have USDC? Yes. I will click on the button. What will happen? It will basically deploy a destination contract with the same hash. Okay, he will have all the funds and he will deploy the destination contract with the same hash. Now both the senders and the receivers, both the funds are locked on chain A and chain B. Now what we need to do is like to get the funds. Once Alice know, okay, a destination contract has been deployed, he can check on chain and we will be providing the events. He can reveal the secret. First of all, he can claim with the secret on destination contract on chain B, because he has the secret and he can just do the transaction and get the funds. And on the other side, like once he reveals the secret, the Bob can basically come on the chain A and can get the funds because the secret is revealed now. Okay. There is something called as time T. You might say, what if like Alice basically gets the money and he also withdraws from the source chain, right? That's the question that comes to a lot of people's mind. Like on chain B, you reveal the secret and took the money, I mean the Alice. And Bob, before he can do a transaction on chain A, you basically like took the funds back. You cannot do it. That is called as time locks. Okay. These contracts are also locked for the time. So basically the destination contract's time is always less than you have a question? Yeah.
Right, so what does secret look like? He says a very same secret.
Secret is like you can create any kind of, for now, for the example, it's like a password kind of thing, but you can generate a very random string, any random string with your private key. Yeah. It just needs to be very unique. Yeah. It can be like random string generated using your private key. Private key because it can remain on like on the client side, and you can regenerate it if you have a salt or something like that. But it's just like a big string, like a password. And you store on the contract the hash of it. And you cannot get like what was the secret actually until unless you reveal it. Yeah. So then I was discussing the concept of time lock. Like the thing is the destination's contract time, the destination contract is locked for time less than, this is the condition, for less than the source contract. I mean, if you have to refund, like once the refund period comes, the destination contract's refund period will come first, and after that the source contract, so that no one can take the funds before it. Like Alice cannot do like he just reveals the secret on the destination contract and takes the fund. He cannot refund it on the source chain because there would be still time for Bob to use that revealed secret to get the funds on the source chain. So this is like how this works, and it's totally trustless. But there was one attack vector. It's a public HLTC. This works very nicely when you have a resolver or like a server which is coordinating this transaction, but it was a public HLTC. So that means basically, as I said, user A posts a public HLTC, user B deploys the destination contract. Once A reveals the secret, there is a chance that the source contract doesn't know who is the person who has deployed the destination contract, right? That's the problem here. Like destination contract knows who was the sender, but the starting contract doesn't know who has fulfilled its swap. This is okay like if you're sending directly and trading directly with the known person, like the known address. But the source contract should know who was the fulfiller of that transaction. So for this, we got two methods. We researched on two methods. One was like platform takes the control, which we don't want. So platform basically sees, okay, the destination contract has been deployed. Let's get the address of the fulfiller and put it into the on the source side, and same way like source side on the destination side. Everything was managed with our platform, and which we don't want, because if we go down, we don't want like the whole platform to go down. What we deduce is like we have a relayer, of course, but a distributed relayer. Like on the destination side, everything is sorted. Only on the source side, the problem is we need to put the address. So what we did is like there would be a relayer, and there would be like multiple relayers. Anyone can become a relayer. So this is like how it works. Anyone can become a relayer. You can become a relayer. They would just sign an attestation. Like once a transaction happens, they will just sign an attestation and just submit into the contract, okay, this is the address which has fulfilled your transaction, which has fulfilled your swap. And once that is done, the contract basically updates the source contract, and then it becomes active. Then only somebody can take the funds out of it. So this is like how it looks. You create a swap now, deploy the source escrow. This is locked. Then fulfill swap happens. Destination contract is deployed. The fulfiller is locked. Then the relayers set the fulfiller. And until and unless relayers set the fulfiller, you cannot claim the funds on the chain name. The contract doesn't get active. Once that is done, secret is revealed, the transaction is completed. So this looks technically like behind the scenes very difficult, but if you we built a POC of it as well, like on the platform. You can just swap in seconds. You just have to click on like I want to get this funds like 1 ETH, 1 USDC. Once that is done, on the other side, you basically clicks on the transaction that I want to fulfill it. Everything is done. And there is just one button like click to reveal the secret. You just have to reveal the secret. That's it. We also thought of bringing private swaps which is basically how this thing is solved, like to directly exchange tokens with my friend or anyone on the Telegram. That is sorted now. That has been solved. And the thing is, we are just converting this into the product so that you people can also use it. You can swap any amount of money on it, like, and you can be like fully secure. You don't have to worry about what is happening. Another thing is, there was a demand and we researched about it, like we want to do private swaps such that I don't want to reveal, like I have traded 1 million USDC with my friend, how we can do it. And Viraj would be discussing this part. Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Mohit. So, yeah, I think this is more of a, like Mohit said, it's more of a exploratory stuff on our end in terms of researching on how to we introduce privacy. And in the past, like in this year, let alone, we've seen around people focusing a lot on privacy, and that's what we thought as well to research, around different solutions on what, could be done to accomplish this. And we came up with like 3 initial approaches that we could potentially adopt. So I'll just go one by one. So we start off with this ZK-based hash lot time lot approach. So where we use ZK snuts to basically generate a ZK proof and basically use it to prove, fund ownership, and then on both the buyer and the seller side. And once the ownership is proved, that the proof is, valid, we are able to, send the funds into an escrow contract, and hence we are able to use. And then you be able to incorporate, the hash, the HLTC to be able to execute that swap, and without both the parties knowing that, who the revealing the identities basically of both the parties to each other. And then basically it starts off by the buyer proving that they have, funds lot, and then the seller as well proves ownership on their end. And once, like I said, all of those things are validated, the HLTC swaps are executed, and post the swaps, the proofs being verified. So I'll just dive into this. I'll just zoom this in a bit. Yeah. So basically, the idea is that we want to allow users to do a private P2P swap, which involves, like I said, without revealing identities. So we start off by a buyer depositing funds into a shielded pool and creating a private note through which they get a commitment generated, and then that commitment basically is stored into a Myrtle tree. Once that's done, we then begin with the ZK proof generation process. And now, with the advancements that we've seen with RIST 0 and Succinct, so I've seen like the proof generation times being reduced by a lot than they were actually before. So once that's done, the buyer sends this ZK proof to the seller for verification, and the seller does the same on their end in terms of generation and just verifying it, like verifying the buyer's proof. And then once both the proofs have been verified, we have this escrow contract which will verify both proofs. And then once the proofs are valid, we escrow the funds and we do the swap. And this is done without the buyer and the seller knowing each other, like knowing the details of their, so we just so to allow to make all of this process, completely private. That way, after this, we had this another approach which was using homomorphic encryption. And it's a bit different from the HLTC approach, where in here we first basically encrypt the order data, right? And then we match the buyer and the sellers, again without revealing any order details to the parties involved. And once that matching is done, we again use ZK proofs. And in this case, HLTC is just to do the final order settlement in this case. So again, I'll just zoom in and dive in. So the idea is that both the buyer and the seller encrypt the order details on their end using, again, homomorphic encryption. And once that's done, we have another a relayer involved where these values are being sent to. And then that relayer does the comparison of
the encrypted values that it receives from both parties. And once the match is found, we execute the swap again, having a escrow contract, and the proof generation happens to execute the swap like I spoke about in the previous method. And the swap is executed without revealing any identities involved of the parties involved. Yeah. And the last one is a bit more sort of a combination of an on-chain and an off-chain approach with TEs being involved. So it's more around a maker and a taker basically encrypting their order details, and then in this case the TE decrypts both inside a secure hardware, and it matches the order data that it received from both the buyer and the seller internally. And then once all that matching and the processing is done, in this case how this approach differs from the previous two approaches, that in this case we do make the order details public, but only after doing the TE processing. So on the second last step, when the TE processing has been done and the order matching has been already done, then the match result and the time lot is basically the TE gives that as an output. So that means that the order details in that case are become public, and post that again we use hash lots to basically execute the final step, and the swap is completed again. So again in this case, like I said, we start off by just encrypting both like the maker and the taker details in terms of their orders and the amounts that they want to swap. Then once the TE receives the encrypted orders, it starts the processing, and once it detects a match, we get an output, and then we use again hash lots to compute that swap. Besides this, we have also seen projects like Jupiter or Astet doing stuff around ZDC, or like Astet did something around swaps, private swaps with Zcash. And then we've seen Jupiter recently introduced a beta version where they allowed private swaps being enabled. So we also looked into those approaches as well. And this is, again, we're still like researching around this to come up with a solution. So and that's pretty much about the whole peer swap application that we've worked on. And happy to.
I would also like to show one, the product that we have built out of it, the initial peer swap thing. There is just a second.
How do you guys do Fenbushi House?
It's like almost 6-7 months, 7 to 8. No, not
this was different.
Yeah.
That was something he was.
This is my research project, and this is a public good actually. Yeah.
So that was a different product that you.
Yeah, that is like a business product.
That was his own public, his own private thing with a check. He got the big check, you remember?
Yeah. But it doesn't mold jets.
So now let's see. So this is like.
Yuki is very bright.
Yeah, so this is just a second. Yeah, this is the initial demo that we built for out of the research. And this is you can create a new swap coming on the platform. We just added identity verification for some countries, but that is just for the testing. You just have to say I want to give 1 USDC and I want to get this much Aptos. Okay, Aptos is a different chain. Sepolia is a different chain. You can add as many as addresses, as many as chains. You just put the address where you want to get the money, and you do a transaction. The only thing is you just approve a token and you just create an order. Order is basically creating as I said, you create a secret on the UI, and that secret basically uses to deploy that escrow contract. So I will just show. This is like creating the order. So all the swap parameters, like how much is getting exchanged, that is being used. A unique identifier is being used, that is used to deploy the escrow contract with the hash lock. Once you do it, it will come on the platform. Like somebody wants one USDC, who wants to fulfill it? Anyone can fulfill it, whether you are on Parcaster or World App. You can just fulfill this, and this is like how it looks. It shows information, okay. Behind the scenes, whatever we talked about, hash locks, time locks, that is happening. You are basically deploying the contract and you are basically doing that thing. You just put your address where you want to receive the money. You just do one transaction, which basically sends the Aptos and basically deploys the contract and locks your tokens. And once this is done, one last phase for the person who has created the order, you will see claim your token. So you will get a notification that your order was fulfilled. Okay, so this is like how you will say your order was fulfilled. We will just wait for some time for a layer to verify everything. Yeah, so you can see the layer has verified it. Now we just have to submit secret, like you have to reveal the secret. Once we reveal the secret, done. Both of them receive the exchange tokens. So, is it? Yeah. That's the only transaction that you have to do. And if you go on the past orders, your swap is completed. You will receive the funds on exchange of token. So this is like we are bringing it for the NFTs as well. You want to sell your NFT for 10,000 to somebody directly. You don't have to go on any platform. You just come, it's P2P. You can generate a link as well, send your friend, hey, can you give me 10 ETH? That's it. You do the transaction and that's done. Yeah. This is pretty much about like our product. Yeah. Any questions?
Yeah, question. The solution, would you bring the solution below Bitcoin?
What is
like Bitcoin to Ethereum?
Yeah, Bitcoin to Ethereum. Yeah, for that we need to deploy the scripts actually. That could be a bit harder.
Yeah.
But we are seeing like we are working on that. Like maybe we can use Citria, like other blockchains which are building on top of Bitcoin. But you ultimately probably like we would be able.
Maybe.
Yeah. We would be able to do it because for that we just have to minimize the script that gets deployed. So we have to minimize like how we can generate the same kind of logic but on Bitcoin, and we are working.
Yeah.
I think we would be able to. Otherwise, Solana, Aptos, everything is supported. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Any more questions? Yeah.
Did I see an air swap? What do you see?
What?
Air swap. Oh, you see.
Oh, no, not yet.
Very similar product, but I don't think they have like cross-sharing.
Yeah, a lot of existing ones are just same chain. That is like very easy. You can just log the tokens. That's like just escrow thing. This is like cross-chain, and because of that, we have to find our solution, which was called as hash locks, time locks, all of these things. Yeah. Any more questions?
Are you guys thinking this to like a more mature product?
Yes, exactly. We want it to be. We want to develop it as a public good. Yeah. So that. Yeah, anyone can use it. Yeah. Exactly. Maybe we too can exchange tokens. Fenbushi tokens.
Fenbushi tokens.
Directly. You don't have to go on the exchange.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.